We'll first explain why ethics is important for the NFL in this situation. Then we will entail what creating an ethical culture means in theory and in practice. And finally, we'll conclude with the NFL's responsibility to society. So to discuss why ethics should be important to the NFL, I'll pass things off to Sarah.
Thank you, Anna. Embracing ethics is important to sustainably addressing the longstanding racial inequalities. Having a genuine commitment to communicating your values and implementing a long-term solution will foster an inclusive and diverse environment for decades to come, rather than just serving as a temporary fix that gets you through the year with minimal lawsuits and costs. Ethical action demands proactivity to create morally self-sustaining initiatives that provide effective long-term results instead of quick fixes to address negative public perception. In short, there is a value to doing the right thing simply because it is the right thing to do. To show genuine interest in the root causes, not just the secondary negative symptoms, builds trust with stakeholders that the core values you say you have are truly valued in your organization. In return, these loyal stakeholders remain invested in the organization, performing with passion, attracting higher talent, and getting positive views from the public. At the same time, in creating this ethical culture, internally you instill pride in those that build the organization and foster that respect that creates the forward movement of the organization. Commitment to ethics means not just changing for the press when the perception isn't favorable, but actually understanding the environment you operate in and changing for the people in the organization who ultimately allow the organization to exist and thrive. I will now pass it off to Megan to show what it means to build an ethical culture in the NFL.
Thank you, Sarah. An ethical culture is formed from the formal and informal processes which are influenced by a company's values and rely on leaders reinforcing, at a lateral level, commitments to one another and the rest of the organization. We currently see a misalignment between your formal hiring and development processes and your values, which is why we chose in our recommendations to strategically implement formal processes that members of your organization can latch onto as they help to reshape the NFL's culture. It is important to recognize that your core values are not just words on a page, but rather guiding principles that you say you want to live and operate by and have shape your organizational culture. Therefore, we need to dig a little deeper to understand what these values truly mean to you by looking at how you define them to the world. Respect means everyone matters and everyone contributes. You embrace all people for who they are, regardless of status, title, or background, and celebrate diverse opinions and perspectives. But how can these diverse opinions and perspectives be celebrated when minorities in your organization are not given the same opportunities to share their thoughts and ideas as others are?
Integrity means looking to make the right call, doing the right thing when no one is looking, demanding accountability and accepting responsibility when things do go wrong, and working to make them right. However, how can you say that you do the right thing when no one is looking, when right now the entire country is looking at you and you still haven't taken the proper action to address the inequalities present in a long-term and sustainable way?
Responsibility to a team means supporting and depending on one another, embracing interdependence and striving to make your teams, players, fans, communities proud and better. Responsibility, however, is not shown when certain members of your community do not feel proud or supported, but instead underrepresented and disenfranchised due to the imbalance they see within your organization.
And finally, resiliency, setting high standards and continuously striving for excellence, overcoming adversity, turning losses into lessons, and not only embracing the greatest challenges, but rising to meet those challenges. This is the perfect opportunity for the NFL to be able to show its resiliency. Racial inequality is one of the greatest challenges in any industry, but we believe that with our help, you can properly rise to meet this challenge. For how important you say these values are to you, we do not see them well represented in your current formal and informal processes or your overall culture. Showing these juxtapositions between your values and your current actions is not our way of attempting to shame you or to criticize you. We just want to remind you that you have these strong core values you say you want to live by. And we truly believe that you want to do that, but you have to show it. And we want to help you do that.
That's why our 3-piece recommendation looks to realign your formal and informal processes with your values to create a strong, ethical organizational culture that's equitable for all. The formal process changes that we previously recommended are first, the creation of a diversity conference that serves to educate executives on the positive impact of diversity in the league, as well as providing minority coaches and staff the opportunity to expand their networks to help them climb the NFL's coaching ladder. Second is the integration of a career sponsorship program with the NFL's current mentorship opportunities, which we've titled the Championship Program, to promote career development of existing minority coaches and staff in the league. This fosters interpersonal relationships and allyship between candidates to build the inclusive culture on merit and genuine respect. And finally, changes to the hiring process that promote transparency through the implementation of a standardized scorecard that helps judge all potential candidates holistically and fairly, and oversight from the NFL Diversity Committee to ensure accountability for hiring interviews among the individual teams within the league.
Altogether, this builds a sustaining culture that aligns your core values with your actions. And in an inherently competitive environment, this process allows the NFL to focus on what's really important, valuing every member of the team. As a result of these formal changes, we expect to see informal changes in the NFL's culture, where our leaders give due respect to all members of the organization and promote candidates with integrity to build this culture of excellence and resiliency for all stakeholders of the game. As a result, the NFL can embrace its leadership role in society as a whole. With an authentic sense of trust, character, and responsibility, the NFL can be the best role model for not only its players and coaches now, but also future generations of the sports community. Overall, this realignment allows the NFL to have a broad, positive societal impact on the sports industry. And as you say with your core value of integrity, say what you mean what you say, and always follow through. Thank you again for inviting us back to speak with you. We hope we have opened your eyes to the importance of the ethical considerations of this situation.
Thank you very much. You have 16 seconds left. Very good on timing. With that, I would like to move to the next team, Stetson. And then, as I said earlier, we'll give some comments later after all 3 teams have had their 10-minute presentation. So, Stetson, are you ready to present? I'll start the timer when you begin.
Hello, judges. My name is Sadie Jensen.
And my name is Audrey Burley.
And we are Top Hat Consulting. Today, we ask you to once again assume the role of the International Code Council, or ICC. In 1994, a group of major regional code agencies combined to form the ICC with the goal of creating a more uniform impact. The ICC is now the largest organization devoted to creating model codes with the noble vision of creating safe, affordable, and sustainable buildings and communities that regional or state governments can adopt and implement into their laws. You've become an essential leader in the development of safety initiatives that offer the most comprehensive set of model building codes. To accomplish this mission, you aim to provide codes and tools that members can rely on by creating public trust. One way you have accomplished this is by allowing multiple stakeholders to actively participate in a 3-year open voting process to develop model building codes. You also made great breakthroughs related to energy efficiency in buildings. From 2006 to 2012, you increased energy efficiency by 37% because of changes to residential model codes. This is estimated to have saved homeowners across America 32% on energy expenses. That is a very big deal. However, your commitments and achievements have been set back with changes to the ICC code approval process that took place from 2011 to 2021.
Now, in 2011, membership on the code approval committees was changed through a deal between the ICC and trade groups. And this deal guaranteed 4 of 11 voting seats on 2 powerful committees. And it was not made public until the New York Times released an expose in 2019. As the ICC began increasing the involvement of industry representatives in committee hearings, energy usage failed to continue its previous downward trends, making a mere 1% improvement in lessening energy usage from 2012 to 2018. Now, in 2019, after the code development process was influenced by builders and industry interests, the highest vote out turnout ever of government elected officials came to represent themselves to vote on ICC model codes. And they voted for the most energy efficient code ever in ICC history, with 10% improvements for buildings, such as requiring electric ready wiring for appliances and electric cars in new construction. Unfortunately, this set of model codes did not last. In 2021, the ICC proposed repealing the open voting process. Although 75% of voters, with the majority of these being made up by local government representatives, opposed this change, open voting for model building codes was suspended. And this moved voting from a large open process to having them developed by a small committee without input from local government building officials who would be administering these codes, thereby excluding many experienced stakeholders. And this had many effects. For example, in 2021, the American Gas Association pushed to discard several electricity promoting model code recommendations implemented by government officials in 2019, which they claimed disadvantaged the competitiveness of the natural gas industry. The ICC sustained this appeal, thereby overturning the majority governmental vote from 2019. Additionally, in 2021, a 3-member appeals board overturned 5 provisions, including an appeal filed by the National Association of Home Builders about a code that recommended circuitry for electric vehicle hookups in new construction. One of these members was Annie Anderson, a longtime member of the National Association for Home Builders. So why exactly did you, the ICC, change this voting process? And this is a question that the public has been asking. Well, the ICC may have personal reasons for involving industry groups and suspending the open voting process. The reality is that you have not given stakeholders clear explanations for your actions. And this is very detrimental to you as an organization, since it risks the ICC becoming irrelevant. If the people who implement your codes do not feel like their expertise is being heard, they will decide to not use ICC codes in their communities.
We examine the policies and actions of the ICC. We have 2 main ethical concerns in our proposed approach. So the first is an appearance of a conflict of interest. ICC, here's a very specific example of the control you can have to influence large-scale impact on carbon emissions. Imagine if every new home and parking lot had an EV vehicle plug, much like this one, built in by default. People would be 28% more likely to buy electric cars. Not only did you recommend this, you did. However, when a small but influential group of stakeholders suggested that such a code could impact profits, 5 energy-reducing recommendations were overturned through a 3-person appeals committee. Moreover, the fact that the American Gas Association is one of the 2 top-level sponsors of the ICC and provides $30,000 annually might seem a bit suspect in the eyes of the public. While we understand that it is necessary for the ICC to receive funding from the groups that it impacts, the sponsorship from organizations like the AGA and National Association for Homeowners, along with the previously mentioned potential conflict of interest, may lead the public to distrust the ICC. We believe that the ICC must aim to maintain great relations with all stakeholders and sponsors. Additionally, we want to stress how the previous events stated may hint at potential conflict of interest, especially in the public eye. A common saying in ethics is that trust is golden and you should not break it for anyone. The appearance of a conflict of interest does bring in the harm of breaking trust potentially. While there might not be a direct conflict of interest between the ICC and industry representatives, it's important to remember that the appearance can be just as damaging to credibility. Furthermore, we propose an approach which suggests that the most ethical choice is to do what will benefit the most members of society. In this case, it is undeniable that promoting sustainable building codes, which has been one of the main goals of the ICC for over 3 decades, will influence governments to implement codes that encourage sustainable living, reduce CO2 emissions, and prevent irreversible damages caused by climate change. And that has the greatest outcome for our environment, our communities, and our planet. However, this can't be accomplished if there are stakeholders on either side putting their thumbs on the scale. Second, the ICC needs to show it upholds its commitments to its founding values. On the ICC website, it states that you are devoted to transparency and balance of interest as code development principles in your processes. And now more than ever, it is imperative to show your stance and how much you value your commitments by reversing some of your past decisions. You also hold exemplary mission and vision statements to make our communities safer and more sustainable through building codes. But to justly protect the health, safety, and welfare of communities and create a level playing field for builders and manufacturers, it is imperative that you allow the individuals with the community's best interests to have an equal voice in building code recommendations. After the implementation of the 2011 deal, there was only a 1% improvement in energy efficiency, which is a stark contrast to the 37% improvements made in previous years. Once energy efficiency codes that would result in 10% improvement were voted into code in 2019, the code development process was completely changed in a way that unequally benefits industry representatives. We think that these numbers are very concerning and should be taken into consideration in regards to your ethical dilemma. This approach emphasizes the importance of upholding one's own values and ethical commitments, as well as previously mentioned, there is enough evidence to suggest that the ICC has not always upheld its values to the highest standard that they could, and that is why we are here today. To help your organization reach its full potential in aiding the community, we recommend the following step-by-step process. First, we recommend that you reverse your previous actions and open the voting process to ensure that there is a balance of stakeholders in all communities and appeal processes.
Secondly, we suggest that the next model building codes of 2024 project greater improvements for energy efficiency than the 1% we saw in the last couple of years. And lastly, ICC. This is an existential moment for your organizations. We suggest that you reinforce your transparency values in order to remain credible and relevant. This should be accomplished by openly communicating with stakeholders and the public about your model code processes and decisions.
Overall, Top Hat Consulting wants to thank the ICC on behalf of all of our communities for the commendable accomplishments that you've made throughout the last decades to make our communities more safe and sustainable. However, because of your influence, you do have a responsibility to our communities and future communities to continue making these changes. To imagine this, I would like to take a second to reflect on the magnitude of the impact on your suggested building codes, which has influenced nearly half the world, from the US to Latin America to more. You have impacted more than 2 billion lives. Now, judges, I would like you to close your eyes and imagine the worst storm that you can possibly imagine. Horrendous winds, roofs blowing off of homes, gigantic waves washing away entire communities. Now imagine forest fires, ravaging neighborhoods, and drought-scorched dirt that cannot support life. Please open your eyes. This is not something that lives in our imaginations. ICC, it is here, and we are rapidly running out of time. You can help us fix this. The ICC has previously been a strong leader in making changes to building codes with the purpose of mitigating and adapting to climate change. Please continue to further this leadership into the future by once again equally involving all of your stakeholders. Thank you.
Good time, the end of time. Nice job. And finally, University of Illinois Champaign Urbana. Are you all here?
Yep, we're all here.
Nabil and PJ? Okay. Yep. Are you prepared to start?
Yeah, yes, we are.
Okay, I will start the timer when you begin.
Yep, thank you so much, Ken. We appreciate the board members of Instagram for meeting with us. My name is Nabil Mustafa and I'm here with PJ Bay. So now let's talk about data. In today's technologically driven age, data collection and data processing has become ever so optimized. On Instagram, every like, comment, and search can be used to create a conglomerate of data points. That conglomerate can be utilized to develop a psychographic user profile that is extremely valuable for targeted advertising. Psychographic user profiles have become scarily accurate due to the amount of personal data that online businesses, particularly social media companies, can collect. Are you comfortable with social media companies collecting your personal data? And you might be wondering, how do social media companies even get access to our personal data? Well, by accepting an overly complicated terms and conditions agreement, you agreed to give that social media company the right to collect and manipulate your personal data. I know what you might be thinking. I don't even remember accepting any sort of contract that forfeits my data autonomy. I know I hardly remember accepting any sort of agreement. This brings us to the problem at hand. Social media companies such as Instagram lack transparency in their terms and conditions agreements. Terms and conditions agreements are often too wordy and complex for the average social media user to understand. Therefore, many users end up accepting the terms and conditions agreement without understanding what rights they have just forfeited. Now I'll pass it off to PJ to discuss our recommendation for Instagram, a company that is a leader in social media with the opportunity to set the standard for digital transparency.
Thank you. Our solution is a complete update to terms and conditions. As is right now, Instagram's terms and conditions are very generic, with lots of words that an average American may not be able to understand. We suggest that Instagram should create a modifiable terms and conditions that's entirely transparent and gives users greater authority in what data rights they're willing to forfeit. Taking a look at the industry as a whole, it's very clear that they all need work. There's really no standard of terms and conditions among social media companies, so people really have no idea what to expect when deciding whether or not to read the terms and conditions. There's two different sides of the spectrum here, either overly complicated or far too vague. So let's take a look at one side, Microsoft. Microsoft's terms and conditions are over 15,000 words, which would take over an hour to read. They're full of overly confusing language and vague terms. There are countless ideas that could harm people in these terms and conditions hidden within the fine print. For example, by clicking through the end user license agreement from Windows XP, you're agreeing to let Microsoft download software onto your computer that most people are completely unaware of. Taking a look at the other side of the spectrum, we have Google. With just over 3,500 words, their terms and conditions take around 15 minutes to read. However, this is obviously far too short for one of the biggest search engines. For example, in 2015, Google was forced to rewrite privacy rules after being ordered by the UK Commissioner's Office to make it less confusing. They were full of very vague terms, so although they're very short, it's incredibly hard to understand. Our suggestion is for Instagram to set the standard for what terms and conditions should look like across the social media industry. So what might this standard look like? We've built a framework for what an ethical terms and conditions should be. Let's go through it. Starting off with an abstract. A large majority of people won't read a terms and conditions at all due to a mental block they have. They won't even click on it just to skim through it. It's much easier just to hit yes and accept. An abstract would encourage people to just take a brief look at the terms and conditions and look for any red flags they might see. Next, specificity. We need terms and conditions to be including exact numbers about how much data is collected, where it's being collected, and how it's being used. This level of transparency will really help customers feel comfortable. Next, we have a TLDR. Now, if you're not familiar with what a TLDR is, it's a common term used in long form posts on the internet. It means too long, didn't read. We suggest that after each section of the terms and conditions, Instagram include a short 2 to 3 sentence summary. And this summary will allow people to skim through, looking at the distinct sections and deciding if there's something that they're not comfortable with and they'd like to read more into. Next, we have choices. Currently, consumers have absolutely no choice when it comes to terms and conditions. It's an illusion of a choice to agree or not to agree, but really all you can do is agree blindly or don't get access to the service that you want to use. We want to allow a level of privacy choice, so make it a spectrum for each individual type of data collected. Allowing a choice of a level of privacy would encourage people to actually read through the terms and conditions and make well-informed choices about what they're actually comfortable with the company taking. This would also let us know if our solution is working, because it'll give us data if people actually choose levels of privacy or if they accept blindly. Next, we have length. The length of a good terms and conditions should only take around 20 minutes to read, give or take, around 15,000 words. And lastly, we have level. Terms and conditions should be at a reading level of around 10th grade. This is the New York Times standard, so we know that the majority of Americans will already be able to read it. Although it may seem high for some, 10th grade is just high enough for companies to include some of their complex data language without sacrificing too much. We also encourage Instagram to keep into account minority groups who have different phrasing and different language, and we also encourage different languages to be put into terms and conditions. Now I'm going to pass it off to Nabil for some ethical reasoning.
Thank you, PJ. Now let's talk strictly ethics. First and foremost, it is essential for us as people to treat each other with dignity and never as mere tools. Deceiving people into forfeiting their data rights and then manipulating their personal data to create psychographic profiles for targeted advertising is simply unethical, as it treats people like mere tools. We need transparency, and we need to give people back their data autonomy. Furthermore, Instagram's core values are community, creativity, and simplicity. Practicing digital transparency, specifically with terms and conditions, will build upon Instagram's core values. With transparency comes trust. With trust comes the empowerment of a community. Along with trust comes increased comfortability. Users will be more comfortable to express themselves on Instagram, knowing that the company is being transparent with them and the information they collect. At last, overly complicated terms and condition agreements certainly don't align with the value of simplicity. It only makes sense for Instagram's terms and conditions to match the simplicity of its platform. It's only in Instagram's best interest to practice digital transparency. It aligns with Instagram's core values. Therefore, by holding true to these values, it would be most ethical from the perspective of the company. Now I'll pass it off to PJ to discuss the implementation of our solution.
Thanks. So let's take a look at some steps for implementation. We have 3 major steps. First of all, a complete rewrite of Instagram terms and conditions is in order. This will take about a year for the full audit, give or take, but we also want to include time for customer feedback and focus groups. It's really important to see how people receive this new audit of terms and conditions and test if it's actually working or not. Next, once the audit is completely finished and ready to launch, design a marketing campaign based on your newfound transparency. It will be impossible to lose customers as a result of this, and you only stand to gain consumers' trust and market share. This will also create competition among social media companies about their terms and conditions. This will be a healthy competition, which will be beneficial to the consumers in general, because companies will be competing over how transparent they are coming to the customers. Lastly, for our third implementation step, we suggest you play an active role in shaping digital privacy legislation in Congress. Instagram could be positioned as the primary advocate for ethical communication and data collection. This would set you as an industry leader, and many other companies would follow suit. This is anticipating legal change before it really happens and setting Instagram at the forefront of it. So what are some ways to go about this? Well, one auditing firm that we suggest you use is called Loyal, with 2 L's at the end. Loyal supports general data protection regulation compliance and will help companies rewrite their terms and conditions. We suggest Instagram hire them as a client to help them rewrite their terms and conditions in an ethical manner using our framework. We also suggest you begin a petition on your platform for Congress to consider new terms of service regulation. This will allow Instagram to have a major role and lobby Congress based on changing the entire industry's terms and conditions. By giving users autonomy over their data, Instagram can set the precedent for how other social media platforms can gain consent from their users in the most ethical manner. Thank you.
Very good. You have 19 seconds remaining. All 3 teams did very well on timing, and that makes it easy for the judges to not be worried about technicalities. My co-judge, Mr. Mazer is will have some comments. I'm sure. My suggestion is that we look at Penn State's presentation and then Stetson's and then Illinois. We're not about to rank order your presentations in this session, of course, but we do want to give you some feedback from our point of view. I'll kick it off with the Penn State presentation. I thought your choice of topics was a very good one, and the focus clearly from an ethical point of view was on fairness, and that's a central issue in ethics. So there's no doubt about the relevance of your topic to the purpose of the competition. Let's see what I have in my notes here. I thought the point that you made about in the middle of your presentation, that this was for equity and promotions for all races, but not at the expense of any race. I think that was absolutely central to your presentation, and it would have been very difficult for you to make a presentation that whose implementation involved not doing that. And I think being aware of that was a very positive aspect of your presentation. I liked very much your explanation of self-interest as part of the ethical explanation for your solution. But it was self-interest, but it was self-interest. Alexis de Tocqueville, in his famous book about democracy in America in the 19th century, spoke of self-interest properly understood. And that's what I was hearing when I listened to your presentation, self-interest properly understood. And the properly understood part means paying attention to rightness and justice for its own sake. And that's what I heard you saying, self-interest, but not only self-interest. And building an ethical culture is the central intention of your solution. And that takes time. The one part of the presentation that gave me some pause was, I don't know that the problem was well defined. That is, you indicated that there was a promotion issue with from a racial point of view, but it didn't get identified in a very specific way, and therefore it was hard for me to understand whether your solution was going to solve it. And that was one place where I thought it could be improved. But now let me turn to Mr. Mazer.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, I think Ken had a lot of very helpful points. You know, on his last point, yeah, I'm a huge NFL fan, and so I'm totally aware of the Flores issue, of the Kaepernick issue. So the timing is perfect for what you're analyzing and looking at. So in the one hand, it was more obvious to me, but I did find myself writing, there was this moment in the middle where I wrote, oh, what they're saying is, hey, NFL, you say you want to be ethical, but you're doing it badly. We have a recommendation for how you can do it better. So that helped me realize what you were trying to accomplish. Yeah, I really thought the three of you did a great job. The interchange among the three of you seemed really smooth. The pacing was great. You know, I say this to all of the teams because, by the way, you know, Ken Goodpaster is a lot of amazing things that we don't have time to go through the whole list. It's an amazing scholar, an amazing professor. I'm not what he is, but what I am, I deliver the presentations that you guys just did. In fact, the Stetson people, I did almost the exact same thing, but in real life. So I'm an ethicist and I have served as a consultant, and I'm walking in, you know, trying to persuade these people, and you work for 3 years to get that meeting where you have these 10 minutes. So I am literally the guy who does exactly what each of you just did for 10 minutes. And so it's very exciting. And the point I want to bring up, you inevitably are accusing them of being unethical, which is okay because it's true. But you want to accomplish a goal, which requires them knowing that what they've been doing is unethical, but you want to do it as properly and carefully and deeply as you can without crossing the line of unnecessarily insulting them. So I bring this up because I felt like I'd get mad at any of you if you were too soft and spent too much time kissing their butts. And I'd also get mad if any of you were too aggressive and were just plain mean because it's not in real life. You know, for me, it's real life. And if I get too mean, they have security and they can rush me out of the building. And it's happened once, but anyway. So good job to Penn State for good balance there on challenging them to be better without insulting them. You know, what you said the right words in the right ways with equity and diversity and these ethical culture is great. I was wanting there to be a moment in the 10 minutes where you painted a vision of what it would mean to be successful. What will it look like someday? And maybe the answer is, you know, we take a look at the entire league and we see that various groups are fairly represented. Or maybe we take a look at the entire league and, you know, that standard scorecard you talked about and the changes to the hiring process, you know, that you interviewed the last 100 people who were interviewed. And you checked with them and they're like, yeah, I really felt it was fair. And, you know, they asked me the same questions that they asked him or something. But, you know, when you're dealing with issues of discrimination and equity, people, and of course, like Ken said, it's so good that you acknowledge the reality of reverse discrimination and things like that. And I love, you know, with the NFL, it's so funny, you know, they call it the Rooney Rule, right? The Rooney Rule is all about mandating that there be at least one Black person interviewed. The huge joke about that is it's the Rooney family. And the Rooney family keeps hiring members of the Rooney family. And there's nothing more discriminatory and anti-ethical than only hiring family. But anyway, let's just say I'm not a big fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, but I think Rooney Mara is a very fine actress. So anyway, very good. The manner in which you identified the values, respect, integrity, responsibility to the team, and resiliency, and you used that as a framework for the rest of your presentation was fantastic. The manner in which you made reference and said, here's our agenda. We're going to talk about these 3 things when we don't have slides, but we care deeply about what you're saying, we need you to treat us like the 10-year-olds that we are, because, you know, Ken and I are listening, and it's hard because we care about every freaking word you say. And so by making it very clear, stating those values, and then reconnecting, and then doing a summary at the end, and your very last point that I think Megan made, of the 3-piece recommendation connected with the values. Obviously, the league is proud of the effort that it put into developing its values, even though you're in that room insulting their ethics. By you suggesting that they can solve their problem by using their own values, you are sort of secretly patting them on the back for having good values, and it makes them feel better and more likely to implement your recommendation because of that. So anyway, nice job. Ken, do you want to talk about our friends from Stetson?
Yes, I think that's the next thing we should do. And if you want to take the lead on that one, I'd be grateful.
Okay, so well, again, all 3 of your presentations, your topics were very well chosen, but I swear, Stetson, this is such an awesome topic, and it's the most real life thing that will save the most number of lives in the world, is what you're talking about. And you know, Ken and I are old enough that you all are aware that a year ago there was a terrible collapse of a building in Florida, and a lot has to do with poor building codes. For Ken and I, we were around in the 80s or the 90s when Homestead, Florida suffered just like a hurricane that was just like class 2 or whatever they call it, but unbelievable number of deaths because they found out how many of the building inspectors had been paid off. And it was poorer parts filled with, non-white underrepresented persons who died unnecessarily because of unbelievable graft and corruption with regard to building codes. And so I don't know who among the 2 of you or your other team members saw that New York Times article, but I am so happy you did. And I'm actually going to go back and watch your video from yesterday because this is such an unbelievably important topic. So, I think really good, Stetson, that you started off celebrating them. Like I said, we cannot ignore the challenge of the fact that you're walking into a room of rich, powerful people and telling them they're unethical. I've done it 100 times in my life. It's really hard to do. I love how very direct you were in just calling out the reality of what the problems were and associating it with the harms. Today is all about the ethics part of the problem. And so you very specifically jumped right in to say, here are the 2 ethical concerns. Very well chosen. Conflict of interest, you didn't pussyfoot around, you went right at it and just made it crystal clear. And again, you're outsiders, and sometimes no one will ever be honest with these powerful people. So if you're not honest with them about it, who will be? But it's tough because when I'm in your shoes and doing this, if I don't get them in the long run to pay me to help them solve their problem, then I can't cover my rent or my mortgage next month, so it's awkward. So in a perfect world, I work for a university like Ken does, and my paycheck is being paid by something other than need to kiss up to these people to get a contract to help them with their ethical issues. The recommendations I thought were very well chosen. 1, 2, 3, very specific, just harping in on the transparency. The recommendations were very reflective of what you said were the ethical concerns, which are really good. And while Sadie, I I'm a big fan of the close your eyes thing at the end. My clock disagrees with Ken, and I have you that you went 10 minutes and 15 seconds. You didn't have to. If we had done the close eye thing differently, you could have very easily finished in less than 10 minutes. And so I had to mark it negatively there because we kind of take the 10-minute thing seriously, but it's not a huge markdown. It's just an acknowledgement. But anyway, just fantastic topic. Very well presented. The two of you fleshed, went back and forth together as if you had practiced this 100 times. So nice job.
Thank you very much. That was so thorough that I have not as much to say now that I might have said before. I just want to reinforce Tim's observation about the importance of delivering the message to the persons who are going to be hearing it in a way that's got some hope of changing behavior. And Tim has said this in several different ways. It's not easy to do moral criticism in a way that is going to accomplish that goal. But it takes diplomacy and it takes imagination. And one of the best ways to do it is to appeal to the values that have already been enunciated by the person to whom you're addressing the presentation. Instead of parachuting in with foreign, in quotes, values that you want them to adopt. If you can appeal to values that they've already articulated and just say, we're asking you to live up to your own deeply held values, that's a tremendously diplomatic way to approach it. That's the way we approach our own country. When we see injustices in our own country, we look at the Declaration of Independence and we look at the all are created equal clause and ask ourselves to live up to it. And that's an important way to get any group or any organized group to be self-critical. Anyway, that's a very powerful point. I thought that your appeal to increasing the trust of the ICC was terribly important. It's in their interest to be trusted, and they can't get trusted just overnight. They have to do some things to earn that trust. And I found that it was clear that you were asking them to do that. Transparency is one way of achieving trust, and you made that clear. Your ethical reasoning was also evident in the background. This philosopher was hearing it, and you were saying that you need to benefit the most members of society, and that's an echo of one of the most important ethical principles that there is. And your solution, you hinted all through your presentation that representation on the ICC needed to be looked at carefully, and that could be part of the problem. And that I think that holding a mirror up to the ICC and saying, look at how you've chosen membership and how you perpetuate yourselves, it is a very powerful thing. You want a more open process, greater energy efficiency, and reinforced transparency. Those were your last 3 points. Good job. All right, now with that, I'd like to turn to Illinois-Champaign Urbana, and I'll kick it off, and Tim, I'm sure will have comments as well. Your choice of topics is, again, I don't think there's a person in this world who hasn't faced the problem of a user agreement, yes or no, and felt coerced to say yes because reading it and trying to understand it and giving consent to it was overwhelming, and the language was unintelligible and the conditions were even unintelligible, and you didn't know what you were really agreeing to, but you needed to get on with life, and so you say yes, and that's a kind of an abuse of power by the institution that's putting you in that spot. And I think you hit upon something that an awful lot of people can identify with, and that's to your credit in choosing the topic that you've chosen. Your solution, well, first of all, your diagnosis of the problem was extremely well done. You talked about two ways in which these user agreements can be abusive to the user by their complexity on the one hand, and you used Microsoft as your example, and then by their vagueness on the other hand. They can be not complex, but they can be vague, and the user still gets abused because of vagueness. And you used Google as your example there. And you want Instagram to be a leader. And I'm very intrigued with the strategy that you chose for Instagram, especially the third piece of it, which is to point in the direction of some sort of evening of the playing field by getting legislation. And in effect, you're asking Instagram to map out the kind of legislation that would be needed, and to adopt it in advance, and to show the way. This is the kind of prudence that I think a lot of companies could exercise and don't in the social domain, to be a power of example, if you will, to the rest of the industry. I've seen it happen in industry associations as well. I did a case study once on a company called Velsicol. It doesn't exist anymore, but it produced agricultural chemicals for export, and it had a series of pictograms that put on the labels for those who in foreign countries couldn't read the language and the safety warnings. And it wanted to use these pictograms generally across the industry, wanted them to all adopt it. And so it took its proposal to the industry association. Unfortunately, the industry association refused to adopt it for all the companies. And so it had to wait for legislation, federal legislation. But it's nice when an industry association can self-regulate. But if it can't, then legislation is the ultimate backup. Anyway, that's an aside. The specific terms of your plan, that there be an abstract, that there be specificity, that there be a TLDR, if I heard you correctly, that there be choices, that the consumer have choices is going to be a problem for the advertisers. You understand that. A lot of all the money that Instagram makes is coming from advertisers, not from users. Users are going to love this plan. Advertisers are not, because it's going to limit their ability to get the data that they're looking for. So you're going to have to tough it out with the advertisers. But if it's an even playing field with legislation, then the downside is going to be it's going to be evened out across companies. That's why I think the third part of your suggestions for solution is smart. And limits on length and limits on the level of language. You're doing this ethically because you believe in the dignity of the user. They're not to be treated as mere tools in an advertising campaign whose information is used whether they like it or not. That's a fundamental ethical principle. It goes back to Immanuel Kant and treating people as ends, not as mere means. And so the ethical foundations of your proposals are clear. Those are my comments. Tim?
Well, thank you all students for being so patient as Ken and I go through this. So the good news here is really good judges in Ken and Tim because we're very knowledgeable. The bad news is Ken and I love this a little too much. So we're holding you on here for 35, 40 minutes or so, but don't worry, it's okay. The rest of your weekend will be better, when you think back to these minutes. So Ken, I need to ask you, is this the very first day in your life you've heard of the acronym TLDR?
Not the first day, because I happened to be a judge when they were presenting their 30-minute presentation.
Oh, okay.
That was
yeah,
the first day.
All right, because the fun part here for all the students is, in my role as an ethicist, I only have two sources of everything I know about ethics. It's Ken Goodpaster and Reddit. So it was exciting for PJ to combine those two for me today. It was just a gift. So as Ken and I have said 2 times already, so many of the things Ken said, I agree with, and so I won't repeat. I don't know if I ever heard the word Meta or Facebook once during the whole presentation. I guess technically I didn't need to, and in your 30-minute presentation, of course, you have the ability to make it clear who the audience is and this and that. But I thought, well, that was wacky. I never heard that once. So Ken's focus on the user versus the advertisers. You guys were correct that you're not supposed to focus on the financials. So I'm glad you didn't. But obviously, at the heart of this issue is money. There is going to be a price to be paid to have a more ethical terms and conditions. And I could have used 1 sentence or 2 sentences or something just to acknowledge, because there's never any unethical solution that's only one-sided positive. There's always trade-offs. And it's your job to persuade them that the trade-offs are worth it. But yeah, we all know, and Ken was the first to say that we're going to lose revenue if we make the T and C's modifiable. But you gentlemen made a very persuasive argument that the marketplace will react positively to our proactive attitude toward ethics, respect for transparency and trust, and we might get rewarded in the end for being the company that wants to do this ethically. So anyway, that was really good. I love that you included the reference to the congressional legislation, as Ken and I say, the level playing field, because there's so much money involved with what's happening here that, it's a terrible thing if Instagram tries to do the right thing and then goes out of business because it was trying to be ethical. Not only would that be a terrible thing, but it would send a message, oh my God, everyone, don't ever be ethical because you'll go out of business, So the level playing field and saying, listen, let's not even play games, hoping that over 5 or 10 years, young people with the new values will choose to join us because we're a more ethical platform. Rather than wait for that to happen, if you do the level playing field, then you don't have to gamble on that. So positive and a negative. Positive is I loved all three topics and I enjoyed literally every one of them. But I must say, the gentleman, somehow when I looked up at the clock, you were, it was so interesting. It kept me captivated, and all of a sudden it was over. So that's a sign of a good presentation. The downside is Ken and I are responsible when we're judging. The whole concept here was something along the lines of, you delivered your 30-minute yesterday. The same group that you presented to called you back and said, hey, can you do just the ethics part again? Because we really want to think that through. And you've heard Ken mention the concept of ethical reasoning. So basically, what is the problem? And here's our solution. The ethical reasoning that goes in that. All three of you did it, but I think the Nabil and PJ, I heard a few too many minutes focused on this excellent solution, and just a few minutes too few on the ethical reasoning. I know Nabil came in there, actually clocked him at 70 seconds, when he said strictly ethics, and I was like, yay, go for it. But it was just 70 seconds. And so I'd like a better balance for you, for Nabil and PJ, in the spirit of exactly what we wanted the 10 minutes to be, of ethical reasoning, in addition to the role of ethics as a part of the overall solution. So, and again, for all of you, if any one of you will be doing the 90-second, just reread exactly what the judges are being told we're expecting for the 90 seconds, so that you only deliver to us what we're looking for. But listen, I can't thank you enough for staying with us until 7 minutes after the hour. I had fun, and I can't. You did a great job. And if there's any one of you who ever would like to have a career in ethics or ethics and compliance, find me on LinkedIn and let me know. And Ken Goodpaster is an amazing resource in Minnesota as well. But I was just like you when I was 18, and I did want to have a career in this. It didn't exist yet. They either said you had to be a professor like Ken, and I'm like, I'm not as smart as Ken, or I had to be a lawyer, and I hated lawyers, so why would I want to be a lawyer? And so I said, no, I want to be an ethics officer, even though the word didn't exist yet. And then today, there's about 450,000 ethics officers around the world, when there were zero when I was thinking about this when I was 18. So pretty exciting. It's a good time, let alone sustainability and ESG. But anyway, congratulations to all of you. And I'll let Ken wrap things up.
Well, thank you, Tim, and to the competitors, to the students here in the room. I can't tell you how fortunate you are to have had as a judge Tim Mazer, and his experience is extraordinary, and he's one of the leading lights in the whole field of ethics and compliance, and what it is to be an ethics officer. And when he says you can look me up on LinkedIn, I hope you take him seriously. He's amazing. So thank you for your presentations. And we have the tough job of trying to rank order them, but you've heard how we assess them right here. And you heard the positives, the negatives, and the quality of your presentations. So carry on. Good luck in the excruciating task of giving a 90-second presentation later today. And thank you. and we are adjourned. And I'll stay on with Tim.
Thank
you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.